Hello and welcome into another episode of Locked On Wolves, a comeback for the ages. This is the post-game pod from the Timberwolves' thrilling fourth quarter, 24-point fourth quarter comeback against the OKC Thunder on Monday night. We're going to break the whole thing down, including Ant's incredible block, the young lineup that got the Wolves back into it late and forced overtime. It's all upcoming. Welcome in. You are Locked On Wolves.
You are Locked On Timberwolves, your daily Minnesota Timberwolves podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Wolves podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. My name is Ben Beecken. I'm the host of Locked On Wolves. Happy Tuesday, everybody. An absolute thriller last night in OKC. So much to talk about today in the show. I mean, there's so many different angles we could attack this thing. I mean, the Wolves were down by 25 in the third quarter. They were down 19 at halftime. They were down 24 going into the fourth quarter. They were down as many as 22 going into the fourth quarter, 24 with under 11 minutes to play. They were still down 16 with under 4 minutes to play in this game. And they came back and forced overtime with Anthony Edwards on the bench. And then he came back in overtime and had the game-saving block, played great defense on SGA down the stretch. Just so much to get into in this one. A really impressive, exhilarating, resilient win for the Timberwolves in this one. So a lot to get to on the show. Big thank you off the top for making Locked On Wolves your first listen every day. Of course, this show is free and available everywhere. That includes YouTube as well as all of your favorite audio platforms. You can also watch on the Locked On Sports Minnesota app on both Roku and Amazon Fire TV. And a reminder, you can subscribe to the daily newsletter at lockedondaily.com. You'll get an email to your inbox, one stop for ultimate team and league coverage delivered right to your email inbox. Sign up for free again at lockedondaily.com. All right. So I already rattled off all the numbers. This was crazy. The Wolves came out looking relatively flat. They missed a lot of shots early, and that was the biggest issue. And, that happened against OKC early in the game. Remember, they played the same team less than 24 hours ago at Target Center. A tip that was 8:30 Sunday night. They turn around and fly to Oklahoma City and play at 7 the following night against the same team, the best team in the NBA, by my estimation, the best team in the NBA, certainly the best team in the West. And like Sunday night at Target Center, the Wolves came out a bit flat, but the offensive rebounding kept them in it, and it was still a close game early. In this game, not so much. OKC was only up 4 at the end of the first quarter, but the second quarter they really started to pull away with Anthony Edwards on the bench, and it went from shots not falling for Minnesota to just being outworked by OKC, and that was more apparent like late third, very early fourth quarter. It felt like OKC was just playing harder, and they were getting the bounces. Like this I think was an early fourth quarter play. Nikhil gets a great block at the rim. I don't even remember who he blocked, and the ball bounces right out to a three-point shooter for a wide open three. Like those types of things, the back taps from OKC were all finding hands of three-point shooters. I mean, OKC finished this game with 16 offensive rebounds. They had only 7 on Sunday against Minnesota. I think Minnesota won the offensive rebound battle 15-7 on Sunday. OKC won it in this game 16-11. Second chance opportunities abounded for OKC. Gilgeous-Alexander had 8 free throw attempts in the first half alone, and he was up to 14 at the midway point of the third quarter. And it just felt like he was going to get every call. I know the Wolves ended up shooting more free throws. So if you're a Thunder fan listening to this and you're up in arms, hang on. I'm going to get to it. I'm going to get to the free throws. But the Timberwolves just eventually, even when it looked like they were down and out, they were down 25 late in the third quarter. 22 to start the fourth, 24 about a minute and change into the fourth quarter, and it looked like the Wolves were down and out. Anthony Edwards is out of the game. Remember, he rests the beginning of fourth quarters, and it felt like this thing was over. Understandably so. But then Nickeil Alexander-Walker starts to do some stuff like he did Sunday. TJ Shannon, Rob Dillingham, Jalen Clark's on the floor at this point. McDaniels makes a tough shot. TJ Shannon makes a tough shot. We're middle stages of the quarter. The Wolves get it down to 16 after a Nas bucket with just under 7 minutes to play. When Anthony Edwards comes back into the game, that's actually right when he came back into the game. It was right before that. So they were down. The Wolves were down 18 when Ant came back into the game. with a little over 7 minutes to play. I was a little surprised. I thought maybe Chris Finch would leave him on the bench. He comes back in. The Wolves get it to 16 after an and one opportunity from TJ Shannon. A couple possessions later, Ant hits a couple of free throws. It's now a 14-point game. The Thunder don't score. The Wolves score again, TJ Shannon. It's now a 12-point game. And then with a 12-point game, the Wolves get another stop. Ant comes down and takes like a semi ill-advised jumper from. So I was at this game in OKC and attended as a fan with my family. And Thunder fans, it's a whole. I'm not going to go down that path, but there was a guy sitting next to me who, when Ant shot the ball, goes, "Oh, that's a terrible shot." And look, on the one hand, Ant shooting a step back in semi-transition straight on is not usually a bad shot. That's just kind of what Ant does. And this was like momentum swinging. We've scored a bunch of points in a row. And Ant's so good at that shot. Well, he did miss it. And so, of course, it looks like a bad shot because he missed it. But it's not something he doesn't do all the time, right? SGA comes back, though, and scores in transition. The Wolves are now back down 14. So it could have been a 9-point game with just over 4 to play. It's back to 14 points with 4 minutes to play. Right after the timeout, Ant just slips and loses the ball. So consecutive bad Anthony Edwards possessions. The Thunder score on the other end. And now it's a 16-point game. Ant comes out of the game. So Ant comes out. Wolves are down 16 to 3:41 to play. The game's all but over. Still on the floor, though, TJ Shannon, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, Rob Dillingham, and then a couple of starters, Naz Reid and Jaden McDaniels. And the Wolves just don't give up. TJ Shannon takes it to the bucket because that's what he does. Runs over Alex Caruso. He gets called for a shooting foul. The Thunder challenge it. It's a bad challenge. He's sliding, and it's a glancing blow from Shannon. So calls not overturned. Calls upheld. TJ Shannon makes the free throws. Nickeil makes a pair of free throws. And then it turns into the Wolves aggressively. It wasn't like a typical, we'll wait until Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is 26 feet from the bucket and we'll send 2 at him. We won't wait for a screen and blitz. We're just going to put 2 on the ball straight up when he crosses the timeline and basically build a wall with the other 3 guys. It essentially is a 2-3 zone with 2 guys guarding the ball and 3 guys guarding the other 4 guys on the floor. And somebody's going to be open. And credit Shai for making the pass more often than not. His teammates could not knock down their mostly open jumpers. And the Wolves did a good job. We have to credit the Wolves for scrambling. For, the back half rotation was very good. And at least getting some decent contests. But like consecutive possessions here, I'm going to skip over what the Wolves did. Jalen Williams misses a 3-pointer. Cason Wallace misses a 3-pointer. Next Thunder possession, Alex Caruso misses a layup. Gets into the paint, misses it. Next Thunder possession, TJ Shannon blocks Caruso at the rim, which was a great play. Next Thunder possession, TJ Shannon blocks Jalen Williams. Next Thunder possession, Alex Caruso misses a 3. Next Thunder possession, Aaron Wiggins misses a 3. It was just a cavalcade of missed 3-pointers that were mostly open. And there was a bit of regression to the mean that needed to happen. Because remember how well OKC shot the ball on Sunday. And I said this on the show. I said, look, OKC was over 50% from 3. A lot of those looks were open, but still that number is crazy. Well, guess what? In this game, OKC finished 15 of 49, 30.6% from 3. 2 of 8 from J-Dub, 2 of 8 from Cason Wallace, 1 of 6 from Aaron Wiggins, 1 of 4 from Alex Caruso, and all 3 of those misses came late in this game when the Thunder were trying to put it away. And SGA became a little bit more passive. And I'm sure there was some level of, hey, we're up 15, we're up 14, we're up 16, whatever. I'm going to just kick it to these guys. If we knock down 1 or 2 of these, we're going to win. Everyone's happy. My teammates get involved. Well, they didn't make the open threes. And then the Wolves kept scoring on their end of the floor. And this thing turned into a real game down the stretch. I'm not going to go completely possession by possession. I already took you through all the Thunder misses, but Rob Dillingham made a couple of really tough shots. Jaden McDaniels got to the line a couple of times. He did it after a scramble offensive rebound. He gets the line, knocks down a couple of big free throws, 51 seconds left. The Thunder miss on their end of the floor. Aaron Wiggins misses. The Wolves call a timeout. Oh, sorry, this is when the scramble happened. McDaniels missed a shot, probably could have been a foul. The Wolves get the ball back, and McDaniels is fouled, makes the bucket, fouled by Caruso, makes the free throw. It's now a tie game with 11 seconds left. And Jalen Clark, this is going to get, I think, glossed over because of the Ant block, and the Ant block is nuts, and we'll talk about it. The ant block in overtime was absolutely insane, and that's really what cemented this game for Minnesota. But in regulation, at the end of regulation with 11 seconds left, remember, this is a tie game. They don't need a three. And Shai Gilgeous-Alexander gets into the paint. Jaylen Clark shuts him down. Shuts him down. Really outstanding job defensively from Jaylen Clark, and he was great against him. And the Wolves win over the Thunder before the All-Star break, and then again before he got hurt on Sunday night. Thankful that Jaylen Clark was able to play in this game. It certainly looked much more serious on Sunday when he was injured, but he played and he shut down SGA on that final possession of regulation. And then Nikhil actually almost hits a floater just inside the three-point line at the end of regulation. It goes to overtime. I want to talk about how Chris Finch called the game down the stretch and in overtime, the rotations for the Wolves. I want to talk about Ant's block. I want to talk about certainly we'll get to studs and duds toward the end. There's so much to unpack in this game, but a really fun finish for sure. And the Wolves' defensive adjustment going from playing man-to-man, blitzing and pick and roll with SGA to mixing in some zone and then turning it into a strict, just straight double of SGA, which basically was a zone for the rest of the guys on the floor. Really impressive coaching job for Minnesota, and rotation. The rotation choices were part of that too. We'll get into that here in a minute. All that is upcoming here next. Today's episode of Locked On Wolves is brought to us by our friends at DoorDash. NBA fans, get ready. They swoosh, you save. Thanks to Dash Pass, every time a player drops 50 or more points in a game, you score a huge deal the next day. It's simple. When any player scores 50 or more in a game during the 24-25 NBA regular season, Dash Pass members get 50% off an order up to $10 off the next day from noon to midnight. There's several ways you can take advantage of the deal. You can have a game day feast. Say there's an epic, call it an Ant 50-point performance one night. You can celebrate the next day, again, from noon to midnight the next day by ordering wings, pizza, burgers, whatever it is from your favorite spot delivered straight to your door. Maybe it's late night cravings the next day. Maybe you're staying up to watch highlights or you need a midnight snack. Use Dash Pass to grab something delicious while saving big. Sign up for Dash Pass and be ready to save. When any player scores 50 or more in a game, Dash Pass members get 50% off an order the next day, up to $10 off. Just use the promo code NBA50 from noon to midnight the day after a 50-point game on eligible orders at participating merchants. Must have an active Dash Pass account. Terms apply. Visit DoorDash to learn more. All right. Okay, so we left this off as going to overtime. And of course, there was a little bit of do we wait for this other shoe to drop here? What's going to happen in overtime? And Ant stayed on the bench. Chris Finch went with the same guys that got him there to close out regulation. Jaden McDaniels and Reid, along with Nikhil Alexander-Walker, and then Terrence Shannon Jr. and Rob Dillingham on the floor. So Jaylen Clark was not on the floor. So at the end of the game, Clark came in the game for defensive purposes, shut down SGA. Finch went back with Dillingham to start overtime. And the first couple of possessions of overtime, the Wolves didn't score. They missed a couple of shots on their first possession. SGA comes down and gets an and one. Wolves are down 3. Nikhil hits a tough 2. Then Jaden hits a couple of free throws. So it's a little bit of back and forth the first couple of minutes. And eventually, with the Wolves down, let's see, they were up 1. Aaron Wiggins gets fouled and goes to the line, and Anthony Edwards comes back in the game. So when he's back in the game, Minnesota's down 1 with a minute and a half left. First possession back, they go to Ant. Ant gets it to Dillingham. Dillingham misses a tough driving layup. It was just didn't put the right touch on the ball. Clangs hard off the backboard. Wolves are still down 1, and the Thunder have the ball. Lou Dort misses a 3. Again, so many missed threes from these Thunder role players. The Timberwolves have the ball coming back the other way. Now, as Reid is fouled, makes his free throws. The Wolves are up 1. Caruso scores on the other end. The Wolves are now down 1. And this is another one of those scramble possessions for the Wolves. Nas gets blocked in the paint. Looks like it could have been a foul. Lou Dort gets the rebound and takes off the other direction, but Jaden McDaniels strips him and ends up getting the ball to Anthony Edwards, who misses a 3. On the offensive rebound, Nas is fouled by Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and despite it being a clear foul on the replay at Paycom Center, I promise you, Thunder fans thought it wasn't a foul. It was. Nas hits both free throws. Clutch free throw shooting for Minnesota. Jaden McDaniels, Nas Reid, Nikhil Alexander-Walker all made clutch free throws down the stretch in overtime and in regulation in the case of Jaden McDaniels. Really, really awesome. Wolves go up 1 The Thunder call a timeout. So it's a 1-point game. The Thunder don't need a 3. The Timberwolves stick with the same guys on the floor. And Anthony Edwards blocks Shai Gilgeous-Alexander at the rim. This is the block you've no doubt seen the replay of. It happened. I was several rows behind that basket, and had a great view of it. Just an incredible athletic play from Anthony Edwards, getting up where he was. Not as high, not as dramatic as the block against the Pacers last year. And it wasn't, the final possession, but it was certainly shades of that. And it was against SGA. It was in the half court. Not in a broken floor situation like the Pacers game was last year, but blocking him from the side like he did, meeting him at the rim and swatting it away. TJ Shannon doing a great job getting the ball. Easily could have been a foul call there against the Thunder, but the Wolves got the timeout with him with the ball in the corner. Joe Ingles comes in to inbound the basketball. Wolves call an extra time, call their last time out when he can't get the ball in. They do get it into Nikhil. They're able to waste 4 seconds. He knocks down clutch free throws, and then Ant gets the assignment to try and lock down SGA on the final possession. SGA tries to foul bait, misses a 3 because he was fading hard to his left trying to draw the foul, and the Wolves win by 3, which, by the way, was their largest lead of the game, was the 3-point winning margin in overtime for Minnesota. Just an incredible, I normally don't just go blow by blow, but there was so much here. And that leads me to talking about how smart Chris Finch was with rotations. I already talked about the defensive stuff. So if you're watching on YouTube, I've got there on the graphic, Finch's big night is the last bullet point. The defensive stuff, that's part of it. How they decided to defend. Now, obviously they were down 20 plus. So that wasn't great, but SGA is incredible. Dude gets the line a bunch. He's a really good player. It is what it is. SGA, and I said on the show, yesterday after Sunday's show, the post-game pod, SGA outplayed Ant. And for most of this game, that was the case too. I mean, Ant only had 17, 13, and 8. SGA put up 39, 10, and 8 and shot the ball better from the floor. Ant was only 1 of 6 on threes in this game. Ant also missed 4 free throws. This wasn't a great Ant game, but the way he closed was phenomenal. And SGA was outstanding for the majority of the game until late. When the Timberwolves scheme, they just loaded up heavily on him. And there's a couple things that are problems for the Thunder. Number one thing is something I talked about in yesterday's show. It's the ability to consistently defensive rebound. They can get eaten up on the offensive glass. And that has been an issue for them. Another problem is they have some guys that just aren't consistent consistent enough from outside the arc. Kaysen Wallace is 33% of the season. Alex Caruso is only 34%. I think he's a better shooter than that. And obviously both those guys are better last year. J-Dub's only 35% from outside the arc. These are high volume 3-point shooters, and they're going to have to be when teams load up on SGA. Now, to be clear, OKC's 12th in 3-point percentage. They're not a bad 3-point shooting team. But if teams guard them the way the Wolves did in the fourth quarter of this game, they've got to make a couple of threes. To be fair, if they make 1 or 2 along the way, the Wolves don't win this game. So I'm not even it's not like the Thunder were far off. The other thing is the free throw disparity. OKC has the 3rd worst opponent free throw rate. Well, actually, I'm looking at the basketball reference number. I really should have pulled Cleaning the Glass. I'll see if I can grab it quick. Cleaning the Glass is better. They filter out garbage time and all that stuff. But they're bottom 3 in the league in opponent free throw rate. OKC gives up a ton of opponent free throws. They play very physical. They foul a lot. This is true, okay? It's unequivocally true. It's a fact. They foul a lot. And they get called for it, and opponents shoot a lot of free throws against them, okay? That's one piece of this. The second piece is people complain about SGA, and Chris Finch had a quote after the game about how SGA is very hard and the Thunder are hard to play against because they foul a lot. He's not wrong. He's not complaining. And to the people who responded to the folks tweeting that quote out from Chris Finch by saying, oh, well, the Thunder are bottom whatever in free throw rate as an offense, which is true. They're, according to Cleaning the Glass, they are 28th in free throw rates, the same as Basketball Reference, defensively, and 24th in offensive free throw rate, okay? And if you want to look at per game, which is not the right way to look at this, but that's what people do because they're lazy, the Thunder are 29th in free throw attempts per game this year, under 20 free throw attempts per game. So, oh, man, the Thunder must get the short end of the stick. No. SGA has attempted 100 billion more free throws than anybody else in the league. That's not the actual number. It's like 30 more free throws than Giannis. But he's attempted a lot more free throws than anybody else in this league this season. Okay, so let's not miss that. Let's not miss the SGA piece. The reason why the Thunder are so low as a team is because SGA is the only dude that has that, like, the offense functions around, and everybody else is spot up 3-point shooting. Like, there's a couple different ways you could look at this if you want. One is you could look at the 3-point rates individually of everybody on the Thunder, and virtually everybody on the Thunder has a usage, shoots more than 40% of their shots from outside the arc. Chet Holmgren, Jalen Williams, and Hartenstein are the only guys besides SGA that don't have a free throw rate of more than 40%. So, of course, they're not going to get a ton of free throw attempts because they don't take the ball to the basket consistently outside of those guys. And by the way, Chet does have a high free throw rate. Chet Holmgren has a free throw rate that's nearly the same as SGA's. He gets fouled quite a bit and gets to the line quite a bit. This is not a massive offensive rebounding team either. Like, Hartenstein can, Chet Holmgren can. Like, they've got guys that can offensive rebound, but it's not a big part of their game. That's, of course, something else that generates free throws, is what the Wolves have been doing for the last 2 months, is getting a lot more offensive rebounds, and it's helping them get to the line more often. The Thunder don't do either of those things outside of SGA. SGA has an otherworldly free throw rate. He's attempted, 20 coming into last night's game. SGA had attempted 28 more free throws than the next most in the league, which is Giannis, followed by Trae Young, who's like 70 back. So it's SGA and Giannis are the top two with a bullet, and SGA attempted 17 free throws in this game. So this dude is getting calls. Like, let's not pretend like the Thunder don't get calls. It's just that nobody else is trying to get calls. Like, Jaden Williams had six free throw attempts in this game. Nobody else had more than 2 for the Thunder because nobody else was getting into the paint. That's just not how the Thunder play. And to Finch's point, OKC plays so physical, and yes, they get called for a lot of fouls, but it doesn't mean that they're not committing more fouls. It's like an extreme version of what the Wolves were. It looked like they could fall victim to last year in the playoffs. It even started in the Phoenix series where there were some touchy calls early in that series, and it looked a bit dicey for Minnesota because the Wolves wanted to be physical. The Wolves want to be physical on the perimeter with the Jaden McDaniels, the way he plays defense, and Anthony Edwards and Nikhil and even Mike Conley. Like, these guys are physical defenders. They want officials to let things go. OKC's taken that to another level. They've got even more, long switchable athletes than the Wolves have over the last couple of years, I think. And they are banking on the officials not calling literally every foul at the letter of the law, which is why it's so grating when then SGA goes out of his way to draw fouls and gets the calls. In this game, Minnesota attempted 10 more free throws than OKC because they were playing downhill. SGA is the only dude on the Thunder that was doing that. And late in the game, the Thunder didn't get to the line because he was taking a couple dribbles, picking up his dribble and swinging the ball. And the Wolves' rotation was good enough that it forced the Thunder into some semi-contested threes. And the ones that were either lightly contested or wide open, the Thunder just missed. The non-SGA guys did not hold up their end of the bargain. And that's what happened in this game down the stretch. SGA is always going to get calls. That's just what he does. It's frustrating, and I hear Chris Finch's point. Credit the Wolves. They didn't allow themselves to be out physical. Chris Finch was not complaining. He was just stating the truth about the challenge of playing against the Thunder after beating the Thunder at their own game and being more physical and getting to the line 10 more times and out rebounding them by a point and scoring, or by 1 rebound, and scoring 62 points in the paint over OKC without Rudy Gobert. The Wolves out-physicaled the Thunder down the stretch in this game, and that's one of the things that led to them winning. All right, a couple more points, and I want to hit studs and duds, and that's how we'll close out the show here today. All right. We should talk a little rotation. I was going to a minute ago, and then I got sidetracked by the foul thing and the other Chris Finch coaching decisions that were smart. I love that Chris Finch rode the guys that got them there in the fourth quarter. We found out after the game Anthony Edwards was technically out. Precautionary, it sounds like, due to a calf injury. And then Finch said he was told Ant could play about midway through overtime. Surely, if the game had been closer midway through the fourth, he would have stayed on the floor. I mean, he briefly went to the locker room and then was on the bench. Like, it was like, hey, we're down 16 with 3.5 minutes left. Like, let's take our best player out. That makes tons of sense. And then coming back with him with a couple of minutes left in overtime, it was the absolute perfect lever pulling, button pushing, decision making from Chris Finch to allow the young guys, Terrence Shannon, Rob Dillingham, at times Jalen Clark when they were playing some offense, defense, to ride out the game with Naz and Jaden and Nikhil, who were all fantastic, was very intelligent. It would have been so easy to be like, oh man, we got within 2 possessions. Let's put Ant back in the game. Mike Conley, by the way, only played 14 minutes in this game. Early, it was a little bit of foul trouble, and then hit a couple of threes, hit one in the third quarter, I think, and then didn't see the floor again. But Chris Finch, to ride the guys that got him there, was so smart. And TJ Shannon, by the way, I can't believe I waited until now to mention he had a double-double. TJ Shannon had 17 and 10 in this game for the Wolves in 29 minutes, shot 7 of 10. He actually only attempted 1 3. There were a couple threes I thought he passed up that he should have just pulled the trigger, and he didn't. He pulled the ball back and then ended up swinging it, or attacked. Like, he attacked a couple of closeouts too. Just a really strong performance from Finch down the stretch, deciding who to have in the game and when. And then in overtime, he initially brought Ant in for TJ Shannon to give Shannon a breather. And then when the Wolves were shooting free throws, he brought Shannon back in for Dillingham to give them a bigger defensive body, more switchability defensively, a little bit of an offensive defensive sub to give Shannon a breather, get Ant on the floor, and then leave Ant on the floor for the balance of the game. And then for the final possessions of overtime and regulation, to have Jalen Clark back on the floor was awesome too, to be able to go a little bit of offense, defense there. This wasn't as good of a performance for Clark, but that shutdown of SGA at the final horn of regulation was awesome. And it's going to completely get overlooked in this game. That was a huge possession. All right. So anyway, strong game from Chris Finch. I thought he did a great job calling this game. I think the defensive levers that he pulled were great. A couple other quick observations. We talked about points to the paint. Minnesota finished with 62 points in the paint. They were +8 in that category. OKC had 54. A lot of offensive rebounding early. And a couple of alley-oops, couple lobs, just no Rudy really hurts. And that was going to be kind of early in the fourth quarter. I thought that was going to be a big point here on the show today, is like not having Rudy really kills this defense, which was apparent against Houston the other night too. But anyway, still 54 points in the paint for OKC. I talked about OKC's shooting woes from outside the arc. Thunder were 15 of 49. That's under 31%. Minnesota was 9 of 32. The Thunder shot 17 more threes than Minnesota in this game. Minnesota was 9 of 32. That's 28.1% from three. Nobody on the Wolves made more than 2 3-pointers. Naz hit a crazy step back as the Wolves were kind of just starting that comeback in the fourth quarter that got oohs and ahs from the Paycom crowd, who apparently have never seen Naz hit a step back 3. To be fair, Naz was only 2 of 8 from 3 in this game, but that's like filthy. That's what Naz does, right? Nikhil hit a couple, Conley hit a couple, Ant was just 1 of 6, Jalen Clark was 1 of 2, Dillingham was just 1 of 3, Shannon, Ingles each missed a 3-pointer, Luka Garza missed all 3 3-point attempts that he took. A rough shooting night for Minnesota from the perimeter, but then they got downhill. They consistently got downhill. And I should also note, Hartenstein left the game after getting hit in the face. He had a bloody nose. They initially brought him to the tunnel. It looked like they were going to try and bring him back, and then he left for good. Not like Hartenstein is like, a super fearsome rim protector, but not having him in the game allowed the Wolves to play smaller. Like, there didn't need to be Luka Garza minutes. They could play Jaden at the 5. They did that briefly when Naz got a breather. It allowed the Wolves to go smaller and be more comfortable, and also get downhill earlier and often in possessions. And that was huge for Minnesota. All right, studs and duds quickly. I think Nikhil Alexander-Walker might have been the best player on the floor for the Wolves in this game. He was awesome. And remember, he had a great fourth quarter to start the fourth quarter against OKC on Sunday when SGA was off the floor, and Nikhil hit a couple of threes, hit a tough 2, I think, and had a little mini personal run of his own, and then disappeared the rest of the game. In this game, Nikhil was awesome throughout. He was a plus 23 in a game that the Wolves only won by 3. He only played 35 minutes. Okay, so this is a 53-minute game with overtime. Nikhil played 35. So in the Nikhil minutes, the Wolves were plus 23. I mean, what does that mean for the non-Nikhil minutes? The minus 20? Like, it's just nuts. Nikhil Alexander-Walker was awesome. 21 points, 5 rebounds, 3 assists, shot 7 of 12, was 2 of 4 on threes. Was aggressive going down, getting downhill, going to the basket. 5 of 6 on free throws, hit those 2 clutch free throws at the end of overtime to push it to a 3-point game. Also had a block in this game. Just a great Nikhil game. Really, really good against his cousin. And good defensive possessions against SGA too. I know he shot over 50% from the field. I know he had 17 free throw attempts. I know he had 8 assists, but he's really good. And I thought Nod did a good job when he was matched up with them as well. TJ Shannon, also a stud, 17 points, 10 rebounds, 7 of 10 shooting, 3 of 3 at the line, 1 assist, 1 steal, a couple of blocks, just as a bulldog with the ball in his hands, which if you go back and listen to what I said after the draft, that was like the one thing was I said mostly in transition. He's impressed me in secondary breaks, semi-transition opportunities and in the half court, just trying to turn the corner and get to the bucket. He doesn't have like a lightning quick first step, but if he thinks he's ahead of you, if he thinks he's got his head and shoulders ahead of you, he's going to barrel somebody over and get to the bucket anyway. He'll probably get called for a charge once a game if he ends up as a rotation guy, but like you live with that because he's just aggressive and he's a great finisher at the rim. I'm very impressed with TJ Shannon. I think Jaden and Nas, like it's tough. I usually only do 3 studs. I guess I'll go with Jaden because I thought he was more consistent for the entirety of the game, even though Nas was awesome down the stretch. Nas had a little bit of a rough first half, and McDaniels was great from the get-go. Like I think he had like 13 or 15 at halftime, finished with 27 points, 10 rebounds, 4 assists, 2 steals, only 1 turnover in 42 minutes for Jaden McDaniels. He had the ball in his hands a lot, shot 9 of 16, and did not attempt a three-pointer. There was just another game recently where this was the case too, where Jaden went off and scored a bunch of points and didn't shoot a 3. And I remember saying on the show, like, this is weird. Like, I know he's trying to attack closeouts and be a little bit more aggressive going down, getting toward the basket. It was the Portland game when he scored 30, which was a career high. He only attempted 1 3, did not make any threes in that game. And he didn't. So this is 27 points, I believe, is this tied for the second most he's ever had in a game in his career. Certainly tied for second most this season. He had a 27-point game against Dallas in January, and he attempted 5 threes, but only made 1. So in the last 2 big scoring games for him, he was 0 for 1 and 0 for 0 from 3. Just shooting less threes, attacking closeouts, getting downhill, getting into the lane. He attempted 9 free throws in this game. That has to be a career high for Jaden McDaniels. Let's see if I can look that one up quick too. 9 of 9 at the free throw line for Jaden. Just an incredibly impressive performance from Jaden McDaniels. Here, I've got his career highs here. I had to look this up. Let's see. Career high in 2022-23, he did have a game where he attempted 10 free throws. This does tie his career high for free throws made in a game. He was 9 for 10 in a game in 2022-23. So tied for the most free throws he's ever made in a game. All right, those are the 3 studs: Jaden, Nikhil, Terrence, TJ Shannon. Nas Reid, 22 and 11, 3 assists. Again, rough first half, but great down the stretch. 7 of 21 shooting, not great. 2 of 8, not great from 3. But I thought he was good overall in this game. Ant, not a great game. 17, 13, and 8, just 5 of 15 shooting, 1 of 6 on threes. He was 6 of 10 at the line, 4 turnovers, but he had those blocks at the end. And, he has another gear when it really, really matters down the stretch. Very impressive. I don't really have any duds. Like Jalen Clark had a bad plus-minus, but he also had to guard SGA, and that is exhausting. And I thought he played well. We talked about the stop at the end of regulation. Joe Ingles entered the game when OKC was running a zone in the second quarter, and I thought was fine. Like he immediately came in and got an assist with a skip pass. Like I thought Ingles played fine in his 5 minutes. Garza a little bit rockier, no rebounds in 9 minutes, which is if Luka plays 9 minutes and doesn't get a rebound, that means he probably didn't play very well. Missed 3 wide open threes. So a little bit, I guess if I had to pick a dud, it would be Garza. But overall, this team, very impressive. Very, very, very impressive resolve. Great comeback. Awesome job by Chris Finch. Outstanding performances from young guys. We didn't talk a lot about Dillingham. One of the better games he's played. There were certainly some down moments because why wouldn't there be? It's rookie point guard, right? Second on the team in plus minus, had 5 assists, which was second on the team. 4 of 10 shooting, like had a couple of very nice drives as the Wolves were making their comeback in the fourth quarter. So a nice game from Dillingham too. There's so much from this game. I may have a couple of points that I want to talk about on tomorrow's show. We'll see. But we'll also get you set up for the rest of the week. We'll talk about where the Wolves stand in the standings, all that good stuff. After a huge win, the Wolves now split the season series with OKC. Just such a big, big win for Minnesota. All right. That's all we got for you today. Big thank you for making Locked On Wolves your first listen every day. Of course, this show is free and available everywhere. That includes YouTube as well as all of your favorite audio platforms. Wherever you like to listen to podcasts, you can find Locked On Wolves. can also watch on the Locked On Sports Minnesota app on both Roku and Amazon Fire TV. And you can subscribe to the daily newsletter, lockedondaily.com. You'll get that newsletter to your inbox every day, Monday through Friday, all things Wolves, all things NBA. Subscribe at lockedondaily.com. Of course, the Locked On Wolves podcast is part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Remember, the Locked On Network is your local experts on all the biggest stories. Once again, I'm Ben Beecken. This is the Locked On Wolves podcast, and we'll catch you next time.